Shabbos Daf Lamed test has two halves. The first half is analyzing the Mishnah, which we learned at the end of Daf Lamed Ches, which discusses secondary sources of heat. That is, cooking on something which doesn't generate its own heat, but it's hot because it was heated by something else. On that, the Gemara will try to explain the machlokes between Rebbe and the Rabbanan. The Gemara will first try to narrow down exactly what the case is. Then it'll explain why Rebbe Yossi only argues in one subject and not in the other subject. And the Gemara will have two explanations for that, and the Gemara will bring a couple of proofs to which of those explanations is correct. Then we get to the second half of the daf, which discusses the halachos of bathing oneself on Shabbos. So let's begin. First of all, let's review the Mishnah. The Mishnah had discussed the halacha of cooking on Shabbos on something which is not a primary heat source. That means it does not generate its own heat. It's hot because it was heated by something else. So an example of that would be water, which was heated by a fire, or a cloth, which was heated by the sun, or let's say sand, which was heated by the sun. All these things are hot, but none of them generate heat. They're just heated by something else. So the Mishnah said that the halacha is as follows. The Rabbanan hold that it is forbidden to cook in any of these things. The Isser Bishul applies to all of these secondary heat sources. However, Rabbi Yossi had said that in the case of cooking on a handkerchief that was heated in the sun, it's mutter. The hot water that's heated on a fire, he agrees, is asur, and sand that's heated by the sun, he agrees, is asur. The only thing that he says is permitted is the handkerchief which is heated by the sun. So first of all, the Gemara tries to nail down exactly how this machlokes works. The Gemara starts by quoting another Mishnah, which seems to be a proof to Rabbi Yossi. The Mishnah says that you're allowed to put water out in the street and have the sun, which is shining on the water, heat the water. So you see clearly that it's like Rabbi Yossi's opinion. So the Gemara says no, that's incorrect. In that situation, the water is being heated by the sun. The sun is a primary heat source. The sun generates its own heat. This entire machlokes between Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanan is about something which was heated in the sun. A cloth which was heated in the sun, meaning it's already hot, it's been left out in the sun for a while, and then you go crack an egg on it and fry the egg on that hot cloth. That is where Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanan disagree. Now, what's the reason that they argue about that? It's as follows. Secondary heat sources have the same halacha midaraisa as the primary heat source which heated it. Okay, so fire is forbidden to cook on daraisa. Something heated by a fire is also forbidden to cook on daraisa. Everybody agrees to that. Sun, directly in the sun, that's permitted to cook. Placing something in sunlight so that it heats up through the sunlight is not a normal way of cooking. That's permitted. Everybody agrees to that. Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanan agree to that. So this case of the Mishnah, there's no machlokes about it. What's the dispute? The dispute's about a secondary heat source which is heated by the sun. That really, midaraisa, should be permitted. There's no problem. It should have the same halacha as its primary heat source, which is the sun, which is permitted to cook in. The only reason that the Rabbanan say it's forbidden is because secondary heat sources are easily confused with each other. Something which is heated by a fire and something which is heated by the sun are both secondary heat sources. If you allow one of them, you may end up having a situation where people will allow both of them. And because a secondary heat source which is heated by fire is asur d'oraisa, the Rabbanan therefore said we have to make a gzeira and forbid cooking on all secondary heat sources, even one which is heated by the sun. Rabbi Yossi disagrees. He says no, heated by the sun is the same as the sun, and therefore you're allowed to fry an egg on a cloth which was heated in the sun. The Gemara now wants to know, if that's all true, how come Rabbi Yossi doesn't dispute the case of an egg that is buried in sand which was heated by the sun? Rabbi Yossi should say that that's permitted also. It's a secondary heat source, it's heated by the sun, and Rabbi Yossi doesn't say that there's a problem of confusing secondary heat sources. So how come he agrees that sand that's heated by the sun is asur to bury an egg in to cook the egg? So the Gemara answers that here it's different. Here it looks very similar to malacha deraisa, because you're burying the egg in the heat source. It looks very similar to what people do, that they bury things in hot ash. Because it's so similar, here Rabbi Yossi agrees that it'll be confused. But just the fact that you have two secondary heat sources, that's not a problem. Here, it's because of the burying that's the problem. That's Rabba's approach to explaining Rabbi Yosef. Now, to explaining Rabbi Yossi. Now, the Gemara says that Rabbi Yosef disagrees with Rabba, and Rabbi Yosef says that the problem here is something else. The The problem is that when you're going to bury this egg in the sand, you're going to have to move sand. As a Mechakos, we've shown him what exactly the issue is. Is it because the sand is muktzah, or is it because you're going to dig a hole? Now, either way, according to Rav Yosef, the issue here is not bishul at all. Rav Yossi in the Mishnah says there is no problem of cooking the egg. The problem is either muktzah or the malacha of plowing, which is what you do when you dig a hole. So now the Gemara says, what is the difference between these two opinions, between Rabbah and Rav Yosef? Who cares what the reason is? So the Gemara says, because there's a case where there's an afkamina, and that's what if you have very soft earth. If your problem is that you may need to move the earth, so very soft earth is not a problem, you don't have to move the earth, and therefore you would be allowed to. If, however, the problem is that it looks like burying in hot ash, and people will therefore end up permitting placing an egg in hot ash, which is a malacha d'oraisa, so then it won't make a difference if it's soft earth or not. Okay, now the Gemara tries to bring a couple of proofs to which opinion is correct, Rab or Rav Yosef. The Gemara says, first of all, we have a brayso in which Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says that you're allowed to roast an egg on a hot roof. You're not allowed to roast an egg on hot lime. Now, lime is heated in a fire, so I understand why you're not allowed to do that. That's a secondary heat source from fire, which everybody agrees is forbidden. However, a hot roof, why is that permitted to roast an egg on? This is obviously Rabbi Yossi's opinion, because according to the Chachamim, anything heated in the sun is forbidden to cook on. And Rabbi Yossi says that you're allowed to roast on a hot roof. Now, if the problem with roasting an egg in sand is because you'll come to move dirt, then there should be a problem here. There's dirt on the roof, you're going to move the dirt. If the problem is that it looks very similar to burying in hot ash because you're burying in sand, so on the roof you're not going to bury the egg. So that would not be an issue, and I would understand why Rabbi Yossi agrees. So Gemara says, no, I can tell you that the problem is that you move the dirt, but on a roof there's not enough dirt, you're not really going to move the dirt around, there's no real problem of moving the dirt. The Gemara now brings its second proof, and the second proof is from the continuation of the Mishnah. After quoting the case in which both Rabbi Yossi and the Chachamim agree that you're not allowed to bury an egg in hot sand to cook it, hot sand which is heated by the sun, the Mishnah brings the following incident, which seems to support that. The Mishnah says that the people of Tveria wanted to have water heated. And what they did was that they ran a pipe of cold water through the Tiberian hot springs in order to heat the water running through the pipe. Now, the Chachamim had said to them that that's forbidden. So now this seems to be a support to what we saw in the Mishnah, that Rabbi Yossi and the Chachamim both agree that you're not allowed to bury an egg in sand. So now, according to Rabbi Yosef, that the reason why Rabbi Yossi agrees not allowed to bury an egg in sand is because it's like burying, and it looks like burying in hot ash, so that I understand why the case of running a pipe of cold water through hot springs is also forbidden, because it's the same concept. The pipe is buried in the hot springs. So it makes sense, it's understandable that Rabbi Yossi would forbid that case just as he forbids the case of the egg buried in the sand. If, however, the reason why he forbids the case of the egg in the sand is like Rabbi Yosef, the first one was Rabbi. If the reason is like Rabbi Yosef, that you may end up moving dirt, why would he forbid the case of the pipe running through the hot springs? There's no dirt to move. There's no issue of muktzah or anything like that. The Gemara answers, and the Gemara says that this story is not meant to be referring back to the case where Rabbi Yossi and the Chachamim agree. It's not commenting on that at all. This story is commenting on the original case where Rabbi Yossi and the Chachamim disagree. Rabbi Yossi and the Chachamim disagree about frying an egg on a cloth heated in the sun. Rabbi Yossi says you're allowed to, and the Chachamim say you're not. So the Chachamim brought this case of the people of Tveria. They said, look, the case of the hot springs in Tveria, hot springs is just like is the same as the cloth heated by the sun. It's not heated in a fire. So just like the hot springs are heated by whatever heat source heats them, apparently the Chachamim felt that it was the sun. And the Chachamim in this Mishnah, in that incident, had said that it was forbidden. So it should prove that we're right, that you're not allowed to fry an egg on cloth heated by the sun. Now the Gemara explains, and what would Rabbi Yossi say about that? Basically says, what are you talking about? It's not comparable at all. The case of cloth heated in the sun, I'm really right. That there's no problem in frying an egg on something which is a secondary heat source, which is heated by the sun. The case of the pipe running through the hot springs, that the hot springs get their heat from fire, not from the sun. Do you know where hot springs get their heat from? The water flows past the entrance to Gehenna, to hell, and that's where they heat up, from deep underground fires. So therefore, it's a secondary heat source of fire, not a secondary heat source of sun. And I would certainly agree, and the Chachamim in that incident were right, that it would be forbidden to run a pipe of cold water through that, because it would be cooking. Okay. Now the Gemara says that from this incident of Rav Chizda, we can learn that you're not allowed to insulate anything, even before Shabbos, in a material that generates heat, because this pipe of hot water was set up to run through the hot springs before Shabbos, and it's forbidden. So we see that you're not allowed to put something inside a heat source even before Shabbos, the Isser Hatmana, which we will see later. Okay, now the Gemara says what actually happened over here with this Tveria thing. So the Gemara said, Ula says that the halacha is like the Tveria people and not like the Chachamim who said that it's forbidden. In that case, it's actually permitted. And Rav Nachman says, no, the halacha is not like the Tveria people. The halacha is like the Chachamim who argued on them. As a matter of fact, the Tveria people even went ahead and destroyed the pipe that they ran through the hot springs because they changed their mind and they agreed with the Chachamim. Now the Gemara moves on to analyze the incident that happened with the people of Tveria more in detail, and the halacha as it regards to taking a bath on Shabbos. So the Mishnah said as follows: the Chachamim told the people of Tveria what you did is forbidden, and the water that is running through the pipe and being heated by the hot springs is being heated on Shabbos, and it has the halacha of water that is being heated on Shabbos, and it is forbidden for bathing in and for drinking. You're not allowed to take a bath in hot water heated on Shabbos, and you're not allowed to drink hot water that was heated on Shabbos. However, if it was Yom Tov, it was heated on Yom Tov, so on Yom Tov you're allowed to cook water for drinking only. So it would be permitted to drink, but it would be forbidden to take a bath in. So now the Gemara says, hold on a second, I don't understand what's going on over here. What type of bathing are we referring to when we say that because this water is heated on Shabbos, it is forbidden to take a bath in it on Shabbos? If we're talking about taking a bath, one's entire body in the bath, so what does that have to do with it being heated on Shabbos? You're not allowed to take a bath with hot water that was heated even before Shabbos. On Shabbos, it's forbidden to take a bath in hot water, even if the hot water was heated before Shabbos. It's got nothing to do with when it was heated. The problem is that the attendants in the bathhouses would often heat water on Shabbos to give people a bath, and they would do it on Shabbos and claim it was before Shabbos, and therefore the Chachamim made a rule, they made a gzeira, a decree. You're not allowed to bathe in hot water on Shabbos under any circumstances. So how does it make sense for the Chachamim to say, the water was heated on Shabbos, you can't take a bath in it? Even if it was before Shabbos, it would be asur. So maybe you want to tell me that it's talking about washing your hands, your face, and your feet. That you're allowed to do with hot water that was heated before Shabbos, but not with hot water that was heated on Shabbos. So Gemara says that's all well and good, except for the fact that in the end of the Mishnah, it says that on Yom Tov you're allowed to use the water for drinking, but not for bathing. Now, why would you not be allowed to bathe your hands, your face, and your feet in water that was heated on Yom Tov? That subject is actually Machogas Beis Hill and Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai says you're not allowed to do that. Beis Shammai says that you're only allowed to heat water on Yom Tov for drinking. If you heat it for drinking, then you could wash your hands, your face, and your feet in it. But you're only allowed to heat it for drinking. You're not allowed to heat it to wash your hands, your face, and your feet. However, Beis Hillel, which is how the halacha should be, disagree. And they say that you are allowed to heat hot water on Yom Tov to bathe your hands, your face, and your feet. So if we're talking about bathing hands, face, and feet, then the end of the Mishnah doesn't make sense. Why would the Chachamim say to the people of Tveria that you're only allowed to drink the hot water, you're not allowed to wash your hands, your face, and your feet in it? Beis Hillel holds you are allowed to heat water on Yom Tov to wash your hands, your face, and your feet. So Gemara answers there's a middle level. There's something between taking a full bath and washing your hands, your face, and your feet. And that is taking a shower. Taking a shower, washing with water pouring on you, washing the entire body. And there, this Mishnah holds that you're allowed to use water that was heated before Shabbos to take a shower, but you're not allowed to use water which was heated on Shabbos. The Gemara now quotes a brisa which specifically discusses this halacha. The brisa has three opinions as to what type of water you're allowed to shower with or not allowed to shower with on Shabbos. So first of all, we have Rabbi Meir says you're not allowed to shower with any kind of water, hot or cold, on Shabbos. Rabbi Shimon says you are allowed to shower with any kind of water, hot or cold, on Shabbos. And Rabbi Yehuda says only cold, not hot. Now our Mishnah, which says that you are allowed, which apparently seems to hold you are allowed to shower with hot water that was heated before Shabbos. The only reason that this Tveria water is also because it was heated on Shabbos is going like Reb Shimon. You're allowed to take a shower with any type of water that was heated before Shabbos or not heated at all, but not with water that was heated on Shabbos. Now the Gemara has a statement of Reb Chizda on this subject, which the Gemara is not clear exactly what he said. But it focuses around the difference between taking a bath in water, it's a shower actually, a shower with water that is collected in a kli, in a bucket of some sort, or water which is collected in an in-ground tub or pool. Now if it's in a kli, it's definitely worse. And the reason is that water in a kli more easily appears to have been heated on a fire. And somebody who sees or finds out that somebody took a shower with water that was in a kli may think that you're allowed to use water heated on a fire on Shabbos. You're even allowed to mix cold water into it. And there's more potential for problems there. Water that's heated in a tub is not as bad because it's obviously not heated in a fire. You didn't put the bathtub over the fire. Best you could have, it's probably heated by hot springs. That's how you get hot water into the tub. So Rabbi Chizda says this machlokes of Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda as to whether or not you're allowed to shower with hot water is only talking about water that's in a kli. However, if the water's in the ground, everybody says that it's mutter. There is no problem. You don't have to worry. Even Rabbi Yehuda agrees. You don't have to worry that people are going to end up heating water in a fire because of that. Now, the Gemara says that's obviously not true, because the whole discussion of the people of Tveria was about water in the ground. They ran a pipe through springs, and we said that was usher. That the whole discussion we had up till now was that it's usher to take a shower with that water because it is considered to be water which was heated on Shabbos. So the Gemara revises what Rav Chizda said. The Gemara says no. What Rav Chizda really said, no. It's only in the case of the water in the ground that there's a machlokes. And that Rav Shimon holds that it is mutter, but if the water is in a kli, Rav Shimon agrees that it's aser. Right? The kli is obviously worse because it could have been heated on a fire. Now the Gemara discusses who the halacha is like. The Gemara says that Rabbi Bar Bachana said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, that it depends what type of water you are using. Hot water you're not allowed to shower in, cold water you are. So the Gemara says Rabbi Yosef was a little suspicious. He said to Rabbi Bar Chana, how do you know that Rabbi Yechanan holds this way? Did you hear him say so? Or are you just assuming based on something else that he said? Now the Gemara explains what he meant. That he was afraid that Rabbi Bar Chana was assuming that Rabbi Yechanan would hold like Rabbi Yehuda based on something else that Rabbi Yechanan said, who said, because we have a statement of Rabbi Tancha in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, the name of Rabbi Yani, in the name of Rabbi, anytime you have a three-way machlokes, the halacha is like the middle one. The one who holds the in-between shita, except for one case, and that's what we had earlier about rags that were set aside for an insignificant use. And the question is if it is susceptible to tuma or not. And over there, Rabbi Eliezer goes to chuma, Rabbi Yeshua goes to kula, and Rabbi Akiva has an in-between approach. The halacha is not like Rabbi Akiva's. This is the exception, where the halacha is not like the in-between. First of all, because Rabbi Akiva was a student of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, and he cannot outweigh the two of them. And second of all, we saw that Rabbi Akiva actually changed his mind, and he ended up holding like Rav Yeshua. So the Gemara says, all right, this is a very good source. Let's say Rabbi Bar Chana figured out based on this that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda because he's the in-between opinion. What's the problem? So the Gemara says no, because this is not a valid proof. Because this rule that the halacha is like the in-between could be that that's only in a Mishnah. But this machlokes with Rabbi Yehuda about showering is in a brisa. In a brisa, that rule that the halacha is like the in-between opinion does not hold true. So Gemara says that Rabbi Abraham is said to Rabbi Yosef, don't worry, I heard it explicitly from Rabbi Yechanan, the halachas like Rabbi Yehuda. I'm not making any inferences. I know that that's exactly what he holds.